Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Lambert Mbom. I am a freelance journalist based in Washington, D.C. I am also the executive director of the Southern Cameroon's Medical Society. Today, the 6th of June 2020, we will be talking about COVID and education. And given the context of what is going on in America, we would also get into racism. The coronavirus has upended systems. And very often with viruses, the tendency is to focus on the health part. Over the last 6 weeks on this show, we have been talking about health impacts, how people can cope with the virus, what strategies people have been using. Today, we are shifting that focus because the coronavirus itself is not just a health pandemic. It has brought on changes in our educational systems. It has brought on changes in our way of life. It has brought on changes in everything. I love the words of the Archbishop of Washington, D.C., Archbishop Gregory. He referred to racism as a virus. And when people challenged him on that, he said, if we do not adopt the mentality of racism as a virus, we may never be able to get to the bottom of it. It keeps coming up every time a young Black person is killed by police officers. And just like coronavirus is putting forth challenges to us, it is important that the same attention that the world has paid to the virus, to COVID-19, we may now learn the lessons and translate that into racism. But before we go on today, I'm very privileged to have with me three distinct and distinguished panelists. First, I have with me Tazi. He is a seasoned educationist. He is a vice principal of Hyattsville Middle School here in Maryland. He's been in education for as long as one could imagine, and we are happy to have him here. And unfortunately, Mbetazi just lost somebody in Cameroon, but again agreed to come on show. Welcome, Mbetazi.
Thank you, Lambert.
I'm also privileged to have with me um, Dr. Mrs. Dillis Minang. I have known Dillis for a while. She's married to my friend and brother, a doctor too, Jacob Minang. And it's an interesting conversation that I would like to have as to why Dillis decided to get a PhD. I don't know what Jacob was doing at home. So maybe that conversation will be interesting. Welcome, Dr. Mrs. Minang.
Thank you, Lambert.
And again, it seems as if I have Bishop Rogan ex-students panel here because Jacob is an ex-student of Bishop Rogan College in Small Support, and the wife who is here has been a very active member of our alumni.
Executive.
Good. And Hilaire Aben is also an ex-student, very, very engaged. He's the founder of a new institute called Tech. We're going to learn a lot about it. He just came back from Cameroon, where he has been for the last 2.5 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And he has been dealing with education. So we want to hear how that is going. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just gave a broad description of who you guys are. I would like for each person to take a minute to tell us about what they have been doing over the last, call it 10 weeks, what their professional lives are, what has been happening at home, or whatever they want to share. Bitazi, can you take it over?
Thank you very much, Lambert. COVID-19, when COVID-19 hit, this was, I think, the United States began to really take this seriously, probably in late February or something. But in early March, we received information from the school system, from the superintendent's office, that the school system was going to shut down. And so, probably on Thursday, we were told that, that Friday would be our very last day at work. And so um, for the next week, the school system tried to figure out what exactly we were going to do. This was in early to mid March, and so it's something no one had ever really thought about. But we had to figure out how exactly to to take care of students, to make sure that students were taught. Just so you know, in the United States, school systems function on the basis of how many days um, students schools are open in a year, and I believe it's usually about 180 days or something like that. Which is why if schools are shut down for one day because of snow or because of some weather emergency, school systems are required to find a way to make up um, for that particular day that the system was shut down. And so now this was early March, and so we had to figure out, so March would have made it probably, um, I believe, 5 months into the school year. So now the school system had to figure out how to make up for those 180 days. We had never ever really thought about closing schools for one week, much less for 4 months. Anyway, luckily, the idea of distance education came up. My school is one of those schools that you call a Title One school, which means that um, the number of the number of students who are considered students from poor families is considerably high. That we received a grant to acquire laptops uh, for students, because in other school systems, uh, especially school systems located in affluent areas, you probably have iPads for all students. But probably a few years ago, we were able to receive a grant to acquire laptops for students. So we had to arrange to have these students, not to have their parents come to the parking lot and pick up laptops to make sure that all students had an opportunity to engage in distance learning. The school system also arranged to have um, what you may call Wi-Fi hubs in different areas throughout the school system. So usually, I mean, what they did was to come to a school in a particular neighborhood and to set up, to install a device that enabled kids in that area to be able to get online. It's been a huge learning experience for all of us, and none of us ever expected that we'll be able to work from home. But if I could just tell you what I have to deal with on a daily basis, when I get up in the morning, I get online from my home, and typically I would have um, 300 plus emails, and this would be emails from my teachers as well as from my students. I have to monitor what the teachers have prepared, lessons that teachers have prepared for students, and of course, responses from the students. It's a huge learning experience. I've spoken with people in the field of education in Cameroon, and I'm kind of puzzled how um, you know kids are able to learn from Cameroon. And from my experience, I can tell you that probably not more than 30% of my students are actively engaged in learning. And this is, we're talking about the United States. For a place like Cameroon, where the government simply said, send students home, kids home. Uh, Honestly, I really don't know if we can only succeed here in America to have about 30% of students actively engaged in learning. It just amazes me how kids in Cameroon or other um, African countries are able to stay engaged. But the kids who have uh, um, participated in distance learning, I would tell you that sometimes it just feels like students being taught by their teachers in almost exactly the same conditions that I've experienced for the past 27 years that I've been working with schools here in the United States. The only difference is that you don't have uh, an active classroom with a teacher um, uh, standing there in the presence of the children. But for those students who have been active in distance learning, it's just to me it's an amazing experience because sometimes it just feels like that inside the classroom. Teachers are able to access different teaching platforms where these young people are able to learn. It's just an amazing experience.
So, Bitaza, thank you very much. I personally is I mean, I don't know what to say when you say the 30%. Just think about that. 30% of students, in spite of all the resources that they have, free Wi-Fi, they have laptops and all those, just 30% have been engaged. And I don't want to talk about the teachers, the challenges of the teachers. I know I live in Hyattsville and I live in Riverdale. So I know that um, one of the professions that our African immigrants have embraced in the United States is also teaching. And the challenges of that environment are huge. Talk less of bringing further something like technology to add to it. But again, we have gone through it, and I'll come back to that experience. Maybe I'll go to Dr. Minang. You are a mother, you are a wife, you have kids. What was the experience for you, or what is the experience for you?
Thank you, Lambert, for having me on. And I would say the day the school system made the decision to close down was very pivotal for me because at that time I was a student. And like you rightly said, I was a mother of my 7 children and 4 others that are visiting, have currently immigrated to the United States with their parents and are living with us. So I had a total of 11 students in my house, including me, would have been 12, that needed to pivot to distance learning. And then I was also a clinical director of a company that I co-owned that had to figure out how to continue to provide healthcare services in the age of coronavirus. And that day, I could tell you, it was it's been a very challenging 10 weeks to try to navigate that. But just focusing on the school aspect, I had to change to distant learning, and luckily for me, I was already around the end of my program, so I was already working on my dissertation work and preparing for my defense. However, for the other part, Mr. Tazi was saying, all the children I had at home, they had to pivot to distance learning, and they luckily in the school district were taking back home with tablets for everybody. But we had to, as parents, how to keep them engaged, how to keep them on those tablets. And I tell you, my experience, I had to actually move them off the tablets and put them on laptops, because what I realized was happening they would get up in the morning and hold those tablets, but they would quickly pivot up from schoolwork into the different games that were on the tablet. These were educational games, of course, but they would quickly pivot up to those educational games on the tablet. And so I sat thinking.
It seems as if I just lost Dr. Minang. Okay. Hillary, so tell us your experience. You have been in Cameroon. When did you get here, and under what circumstances, and how has it been?
Yeah, we have a different type of okay. Doc is back.
So she's back. Sorry, Doc. I know.
Thank you.
These are the challenges of technology.
Yes, the age of IT. I will tell you, you love it or you hate it. You have to still live with it. So I had to pivot really quickly and move them off of those tablets onto computers, which luckily I had access to laptops. So I created a space for them to work out of. I put everybody on a laptop and then signed into their Google accounts that way, which then was linked to my Google account, and I could track their work. Because what happened before I did that was, at the end of the day, I got emails from their teachers saying people had not submitted their work. So that was just one other challenge that we had to deal with on that. But I would say, coming from a point of view of a parent that is at home, educating children by distance learning, it's been challenging, but it's also been very eye-opening. I know we see a lot of the videos out there thanking all the teachers that have been made by parents, because now they get to experience what the teachers have to working with all these children. But it's also been eye-opening for me, because I've gotten to learn a lot more about the levels at which my kids are and how I can help them improve. So it's been, in a way, a curse and a blessing, because it's gotten me as a parent and many other parents out there to become co-teachers with the teachers in school and help to guide these children.
Thank you very much for that experience, and I think we all, as parents, we have had that. I don't want to talk about mine here because I have 3 kids, and I have a set of twins who are 7 years old and they're in 2nd grade, and they have a 3rd grader. And when you have classes at different times, one is at 9, the other one is at 10, and the other one is at 11, and you have to put them at different places, and each person trying to outsmart the other to show that their teacher is the best. And at times the connections are not the best at home. Yeah. I will never forget the morning my daughter, who is 9, she's in 3rd grade, she woke me up and was in tears, and she said, "Daddy, I miss my friends. I want to go back to school. I don't like staying at home." That I have never heard that. We all growing up knew that, hey, school, nobody wants to hear about school. You would rather want to be home, because you have all the time to play. You have all that you need. You want to eat, you can eat as much as you want with all the regulations in place. But that particular experience stayed with me as part of what this COVID has done. And they kept saying, who sent this COVID to us? You have heard about the challenges, Mr. Aben. Tell us again about yourself and coming back to the United States.
Yeah, we are mainly a little different in the sense that Casitech Academy is set up as a hybrid school. So when we have, and we are not as educational, like, from a parent side or from an administrative side, because our institution, our vocational training was set up as hybrid, it was online and in person. Transition wasn't hard, I have to say, but the challenges comes from the territory that we are operating on, Cameroon. The challenges, we can talk about that later on. But when you have learners that they knew about online training because some of their work was online way in August 2019 to December, when we came in February and the Prime Minister announced on a Thursday that all schools were shut down, on Monday, I just had all the learning plan migrated to the online platform. So that was how we were able to survive easily. in Casitech Academy in Yaoundé, because all the learners had already been oriented on the digital skills, how to learn remotely, and they were doing some of their digital collaboration before COVID ever became something that the world knew. But that's not the reality of Cameroon. And that just gives me, if I can say, an urge to say that we had a pioneering vision of education. And I just think COVID has emphasized what we have been preaching for a long time. But our neighbors and sister institutions, we've helped UB, we've helped College Work to try to help them go online, because they knew, and our students had partners in those places that were telling them, this thing that you're trying to set up, I have a guy that I've been learning this skill, and they're already doing it. You can call them. And so I've had conversations since I've been here. I migrated through an evacuation back to the US because, in a position that you're sick, you want to have medical facilities like Dr. Minang's. And so you want to be in a place where you have a better shot. But just like your daughter, I can't wait to get back to my people physically. Yeah. So
Aben, I hate to let me take you back so that people have a little bit of background. I mean, Tell us about you moving to Cameroon. What happened that you moved to Cameroon? And then coming back to the United States as a result of COVID.
Well, I am primarily a cloud engineer, and I'm mostly spent 15 years in IT doing VDI, virtual desktop integration. And I always, working around Africa, working in African countries, I always knew I had to give back somewhere. And primarily went to Cameroon to do those type of work, cloud services. And when I went there, the gap was consistent on the things that I've observed when my mom was doing business. You always get people that are knowledgeable, theoretical, but not applicable. So Casitech Academy is a division of Casitech Group. We have a digital division, a consulting division, but our approach is very futuristic. I will use, maybe down the line, I will explain. My motivation was service impact. It was more like, if you look at the problem all the time and you're not part of the solution, how do you keep talking about the problem? And you want to do business in Cameroon, the biggest gap is the people. The people are not equipped globally. I'm not just talking about US standard, because we have done work, I've done business in Mauritania and Senegal, and those are African countries. And so I was really looking for a way that you can make education more practical and skill-based. And when I went to Yaoundé, we were just that small part. If you're going to any school, whether it's the University of Yaoundé, even Polytechnic, that is supposed to be practical. We just wanted to create a lab and bring people in there from business, IT, and what we call blended, and show them practical way of applying. If you're a business person, to know WACI metrics, it's not something that you can just learn. You see how it's done in a real workplace environment. IT is all about skills. You cannot talk about IT. You have people in the UB graduating in computer science, and they cannot put Hello World on the screen. So those type of things was the gap. And so that was the motivation for Casitech Academy. And so I think some background on what I was doing here before leaving. It was major sacrifices were made. It was the most fulfilling year for me since I've migrated to Cameroon. Since I've been in Cameroon, every year the impact has made the financial gap worth it, this financial sacrifice worth it. But we are even more motivated now than even when I went. If you think I had, let's say, a 50% motivation to go to Cameroon 2 years ago, talking to you now, I think I have 170. I can measure it actually. I'm much more motivated to do things now than even the first time. So the hunger is still there. We are set up in a futuristic way. I'm just going to say something. In the history of education, my parents were all teachers. My father and my mom, they are teachers. People know Madame Folefa or Pa Judge Folefa. And when I looked at it, my dad always had this book. You will see, like, from Pythagoras in the Egypt, they spent 35 years to have a first degree. The book was just summarizing history. And now we have 4 years to have a first degree. And I'm telling people that in the future, because this is an information age with Google and all this stuff, We may have less than 2 years or 1 year, and companies are already hiring people on skills. So if you take that, that's just one level. Then you come to an Africa where if you are training somebody in the US, you're training him for maintenance because the US is already developed. But if you're training somebody in Africa, you have to give him the tools to develop something. He's pioneering. So, but then we have this dichotomy that the Africans are looking at the US and not looking around their quartiers or their neighborhoods. You need to be a producer of technology when you're in Africa. In the US, you are just a consumer. You do 3 months certifications and you can make 100,000. In Africa, you have to start from scratch, from the code base, because you don't have the infrastructure or the resources or even the government support. And so I knew that there was a gap. So if I'm coming to teach anyone, I have to look at the tools and educational resources that is making that person a producer, not a consumer, because he is in a development era and the US is in a maintenance area. But guess what? We are just copying and paste when you go there, and nothing is changing. Nothing is changing, and the best of us are here. So we have a lot of things we've put in place. I can't even go into the details, even if you give me the time. But we still have, like I said, it's 170% motivation for me.
Thank you very much, and I want to congratulate you because being a young man,
Yeah.
with all the opportunities in the United States, the IT is where everybody is seeking to go these days, and for you to have had that experience and you want to transfer that knowledge back to a very difficult country like Cameroon,
More than difficult.
yes, it's commendable. Tazi, let me get back to you. I mean, you have been teaching you have been I don't know whether it's teaching or both, 26, 27 years. What keeps you going? Why do you keep doing it? I mean, everybody who comes to the United States wants to make money. I don't know that teachers make that kind of money. What keeps you motivated to stay in this field?
Oh my goodness, it's something that I love. Um, I mean, when I came to the United States, I already had a master's degree when I got here, and I was able to earn a second master's degree. So they were quite, I mean, many things I could have done. I could have many areas I could have gone into. I discovered that I had a certain passion for education. Um, to piggyback on what Mr. Aben just said, in I think 2 years ago, my wife and I opened a school in Cameroon. I was seriously um, preparing to transition to Cameroon this coming school year. I decided to take early retirement and to return to Cameroon.
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking about it. Actually, I have a very important decision to make within the next 1 week as to whether I should extend, my retirement by 1 extra year. But I think Mr. Aben said something that I really think it's very powerful, which is that it gets to a certain point in your life when um, you think about what really gives you what you want to do, what gives you purpose,
Yeah.
and you know that feeling of going back and settling home, facing the challenges, and being productive. Every single time I think about the few moments I've been in Cameroon, I pretty much go to Cameroon like once or twice a year.
Yeah.
That's when I really feel happy being able to produce. And Dr. Minang also said something about what you do as a parent, because I've been very lucky enough to be the parent of 3 children here who have gone through public school here in America. My last one completed college last year, and she's getting ready to go to medical school. Um, it's a huge challenge, but one of the things I learned being at home and working for the past how many months now from home is, like monitoring student learning online and teacher teaching online, is that there is a social component that schools provide that I do not think not being in school is good enough for children.
Thank you.
Occasionally, you get an email from a student who expresses how much they miss being in school. Um, I have, I mean, as an administrator, right? You go to school, these young people come get sent to the office for discipline and stuff like that. The kids who come to the office the most are the kids who miss being in. I mean, from my experience, the ones that want to be in school. I think if we bring them back to school, those are going to be the most dedicated students. It's amazing. Something else to say is that parents who would call the school and rail at teachers and act as if they own the school right now, just having the children at home has made it possible for them to see what exactly their children really are. Because think about it, as a parent here in America, you know, you spend a good part of your day not seeing your child. Your child is with someone else.
Mhm.
But right now, the children are at home, driving the parents crazy. I've talked to a number of parents on the phone, and some of these parents just happen to be Cameroonian, you know. And the fact that when the kid gets up in the morning, they do not go to school. They are right there around you, whining and whining. Uh, it's driving some of these parents crazy. And I think parents are gradually going to start appreciating what it is like to have not to have your children around you. I've had an incredible career here as I was a high school teacher for 5 years, and then I moved into administration. I've had an incredible career, um, and I can't wait to go back to Cameroon because, no, frankly, I think what I have learned here, my desire is to be able to expose what it is to be an administrator in the United States, to be an educator in the United States. My my um my hope is to be able to really transfer that to an environment like Cameroon, where I think uh, society needs to be able to um, uh, we need to be able to move not just our country Cameroon, but I think Africa as well, Africa at large. To our school systems need to be able to adapt to the realities of the 21st century because we are functioning probably in the mentality of the 18th and sometimes 17th century. And I'm glad that people like Mr. Aben are already there laying the groundwork for some of us to be able to go back and share our experiences from the United States with young people in Cameroon.
Thank you very much. And I wanted to point out that on this platform, you have a nurse who is also a parent. You have an educator who is a parent. You have an IT guy.
Mhm.
These are all professionals. We are all Cameroonians. Fortunately or unfortunately, I will have to say I'm an Ambazonian. We can talk about that later on. But where I'm going to with this is, I think very often people we all come to the United States for different reasons. When I got here in the United States, I don't think that anybody ever asked me. I came from a teaching career. I had been teaching for 5 years. I taught in Christ the King College in Tico. I was teaching French religious studies and I'm sure some literature. Then went over to Kaskumba where I taught philosophy and religious studies. But then coming over, one would have thought that maybe getting into the school system would have been the best thing for one to do. But everybody I met at the time was like, get into nursing, get into nursing. That is where the money is. Get into nursing, But so I'll come back to you, Mbita, whether teaching in the United States is a career option that somebody should be able to consider. Let me come to Dr. Minang, who maybe listened to the admonition of people. This is where the money is. What has been your experience? And then I'll get to a follow-up question as to why you decided to get a PhD. You're already a nurse.
Yeah. Thank you. So I have a very unique experience coming to America. I came as a child of 13. I want to say, yeah, 13 years old when we immigrated here. So I came in and went to high school, then went to college. And then at that time, I made up my mind to go into nursing. And it's funny that a lot of people don't know this about me, but nursing was for me a stepping stone to the medical field. I had wanted to go into medicine, but when I got into nursing, I realized that my ambition for medical school was really not what I wanted. It was what the society or some had held up as the goal to get to. I quickly realized as a nurse that I did not like the hospital. It wasn't something for me. I wanted to impact people's lives, but not in a hospital setting. So as a nurse, I looked into other areas in nursing and I found home care where you could take care of people in their homes, in their privacy of their home, in the comfort of their most natural habitat and environment, and you could empower them to live better and healthier lives before they get to the hospital. So that's the path that I got into nursing. But you're very right, Lambert. A lot of people come and they are told nursing is the best place for them. And nursing is not just the only field in America. There are a lot of other fields where the money is. And I tell young ladies my days that are of my age that it is not about the money. At this point, raising children, I cannot do it the way my aunties and my mothers came here and went into nursing and did it. I cannot be at work 24/7 in order to make the money because that's the reality of making money as a nurse. Making money as a nurse is not a one work thing. It's a 3, 4 jobs, and you have a lot of people out there that are working 2, 3, 4 jobs to make the amount of money they need to make. Nursing can give you at that one job can give you just about as much money as a seasoned and a good teacher would have, a good educator would have. We would have about the same money when we work. If I worked just one job, the only difference is that in nursing, I have that ability to go and work a second job and a third job. But at what cost? It's always at the detriment of your family and at the detriment of the kids that you're supposed to be here taking care of. So it is a myth that there is money in nursing because that money comes at a great cost. However, there are so many other professions, and this is some of the things I know you probably remember. I do a summer camp for immigrant youths in America, mostly the high school age. Those are some of the things we talk about in the summer camp. What are the alternate professions that they can get into that would still give them a good living in America, but give them a quality of life as they grow up? And that is just another whole aspect. Like Hilaire would say, if I start talking about that, we wouldn't have enough time. Yeah. But I would like to just put that there, that nursing it's a great and rewarding field, but it needs to be something that is done for a quality of life and not for the money.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that home care is what, that's your interest. I'm curious about how that has worked during this period of COVID. Have you been able to provide that same kind of care to patients who have contracted the virus and are at home? And what were some of the challenges you had?
Yeah, so for me and for our agency, we've been very fortunate in that we've not had to take care of someone that's at home diagnosed with COVID. However, we've had individuals that have been sick and needed to be transferred to the hospital, which is just the nature of the infection. The elderly can't seem to handle it as well as the younger people at home, and most home care is those elderly people. So, but we had to pivot a lot. We had to look for personal protective equipment that these employees could use while they provide the services at home. We also did some changes where we limited it for one caregiver to one client. At first, the caregiver could take care of a couple of clients, but in order to prevent the spread, if someone had it, we limited that. We came up with an emergency plan of how we would take care of the client in case they did become infected, and if we could pivot to a family member that was already at home, if that person could help. So we did a lot of those, but luckily we didn't have to use too many of them because we didn't end up with a client that was diagnosed and had to be taken care of at home. But it's been a challenging time for home care, especially because a lot of these people are in their home and they're also worried that the caregivers that are coming from outside would bring the virus to them. So we've had a lot of people that would choose to go without care just so that they could stay safe in their homes. So that's another aspect and dynamics of what the virus brought to us as we were trying to provide care.
So, Aben, you are an engineer. You say it's a cloud engineer?
Yeah.
I forgot to ask you what that meant, but what I want to focus on, I think, again, I said we have a teacher, we have an administrator, we have a nurse. These are all lucrative professions. But it seems as if now many Cameroonians, many Africans are rushing into IT. And I love something, a distinction you often make about skills, the emphasis on skills. And I think the mindset that we have had about degrees, the emphasis has been on degrees in Cameroon, the educational system. All of us, I went to Sacred Heart, I went to Bishop Rogan, I went to BHS and all that. We wanted degrees. And we have all come out, and yet we have to get something else in the United States. What is it that is lacking in the educational system in Cameroon that you seem to be providing that others need to be paying attention to?
Man, that is a very loaded question. So I'll try to find the best way to streamline it. In Cameroon, we published an article on. I published an article when I went to Cameroon, but I want to remember two of the main points. So what is lacking for me is like you cannot train someone. You go to Camtel, for example. That's like should be like the star place for IT skills. Most of the people there, they are super smart, but they were trained in a programming language called Fortran and maybe C#. Then they are operating in a world where Python and maybe C++ is. What you see in Cameroon that is even the same across most African countries is that no upgrades, no updates. You have teachers that learned a certain thing, and in the US, in Tazi school, you are forced to go through some kind of retraining every year. If a teacher is lacking something, that's not mandated in Cameroon. And when people come from a system like that, you're talking about geniuses that will die on the grave because the awareness is not there. The people that are in charge of them don't have those skills. I mean, they are theoretical. So I'll start there. So that's the one thing. You cannot have somebody that does not know something to teach, and they are the teachers. 80% of teachers in Cameroon, I don't think they've ever done online like he was saying. So even if COVID, you want to do a real diagnosis of this COVID issue, that's why we're on CRTV teaching kids. But when you come now on the second part where you say most Cameroonians, it is, I call it a scamming mentality or microwave mentality. You're looking at the region where poverty driven, it's like almost 80% is poor. and they have seen these scammers make money overnight. Nobody, the work ethic that I saw even in Bishogan, I don't see now in the students. Anything that makes it that in Cameroon, Nigeria, or most of these poor African countries, the shortcut is the thing. So you see a 3-month certification promising you 100K. We advertise that, but I'll tell you right now, there's nobody that comes to a class or a training or a certification, whether it's AWS or cybersecurity, and tells me, hey, I am a nurse and I want to learn this. I tell them, this certificate will not do anything for you. It will not. I will train you, but I will have to guide you 6 months after this training for you to even be ready for that 70K job. We're not talking about the 100K. And when you give people that kind of reality and show them a blueprint, they can do. Because I frankly believe that the 6 years that took me to have an undergrad and master's in computer science, it would take people maximum 2 years to get to my same position now. I do believe that because of the way IT is. We still need people to have PhDs and masters, especially IT has policies and IT has like developers. It has system administrators, developers, and architects. You want to be a developer, you need 6 months. You can start developing. You want to be a system admin, you need a minimum of 2 years of education and 6 years of experience. So if you don't have somebody that has gone through all of this, he's going to promise these Cameroonians that you're talking about coming into IT is the same thing that happened to you, what you just said earlier, coming into this country, somebody saying doing nursing. Orientation has killed Africans across the globe. When we come to this Western world, if you're oriented a particular way, you believe it and you can defend it until you get to a point where it's no longer satisfying you, then you start seeing people branching out. So I think the Cameroonians are coming in because first they want to help their families. The crap in the barrel mentality. If somebody is poor, are you going to tell him something else? He's trying to make money to feed people who actually need the food. So I defend it in a societal way, but as an IT tech, anybody that I come through, I lay out this blueprint to say, this is it. And whatever they do next is their choice, but you can't blame either side. The teacher in Cameroon that does not know Python and is teaching computer science or ICT in Yaoundé, or you cannot blame the student that leaves Cameroon, gets in the US and hears that if I do this 3-month course, I can get a 100K job. What they normally do is that they do the 3-month course, they fake a resume that says they have been working for 5 years, and then get the job. Some make it, some don't. I can tell you only 1% make it, but I'll stop there. So IT is really, it's complex.
I'm not sure you're going to be very popular amongst the many IT folks that we have in our community, but that's a conversation we can take up. Tazi, let me come back to you. So it struck me that in my house, I always ask, my wife is a nurse, and I always ask my 3 kids, so what do you intend to be in life? I've never heard anybody say that they want to be a nurse, okay? They asked me to come to their school to do a career thing someday, and I came and I was telling my daughters and their classmates what I do. I work in a mental health agency as a supervisor, and they're like, "What is that?" But then nobody, even the teachers who are teaching the students, they ask the student. I never hear any of them telling that I want to become a teacher. What is wrong? They are looking at something else. What they have around them, they are not aspiring. Is it that we are not inspiring our children enough? Is it that the teachers are not doing so much to inspire their students to also want to be like, what is lacking?
Well, that's a very good question. I've reflected on it. America has a significantly different way of, perceiving the teaching profession compared to Cameroon. In Cameroon, if you graduate from the university and you go to like the higher teachers training college, you come out, you are well compensated by Cameroon standards. In the United States, teaching is considered something pretty much like what like being a police officer. But being a police officer, today it's a little bit different because police officers are seen as an invasive force. But Um, in most neighborhoods in the United States, uh, being a police officer grants you a certain level of prestige. Unfortunately, teachers know. And I think the reason is that teaching is it's a county thing. And when you have hundreds of thousands of people on your payroll, you want to make sure that you do everything to keep the salaries low. I think that's the problem here in America. My situation is a little bit different because when I came to the United States and I chose to become a teacher, I was already what you would qualify as a highly educated person. I became a teacher when I already had one master's degree, no, actually two master's degrees, and because of that, I entered the profession at a significantly um, higher level of compensation than most teachers who come in with a basic master's degree. Uh, and then I was a teacher for 5 years. Then I moved into administration. And as an administrator, I wouldn't hide it from you. It's been a long time that I've made six figures every year. And sometimes I joke that I have the best job in the world. I can afford to work 8 hours a day, get up, like go to work at 8 o'clock, 8:30, and come back at 4:35. And I don't have to work. I've never worked on weekends. And but I always ask myself, what exactly do I need money for? Um, as long as I can remember, I've made more money than I can spend. That's why I give away lots of money. My children, I've been able to educate my children the way I wanted. And that's exactly what I set out uh, really aspiring to be a good parent. If I am going to be remembered for anything that I really did, it's not how much money I made, but whether I was a good parent. And I think if looking back now, I think I have, Dr. Minang was mentioning what it is to take care of so many children in your household. You have to ask yourself, what exactly are you going after? If you're going after money, then what then do you do with all of the money that you make? I can't wear two suits at one time. I can't sleep on two beds at one time. So I have more than I need, and so I give away. And honestly, I began to really ask myself this question, which is what gives me satisfaction today? I'm being able to return to Cameroon. I know that if I go back to Cameroon, whatever I'm going to get in terms of money in Cameroon, it's probably going to be about 1/10 of what I earn here. However, it is going to give me the satisfaction that living in America doesn't give. Very early, when I got here, my so many people told me, you know what, you need to go into nursing, you need to go into nursing. But I thought very, very strongly about it, and I asked myself if that was going to give me the satisfaction that I deserved, and my answer was no. I mean, I'm surrounded by nurses. My wife is a nurse. I have so many brothers and sisters and wives of my brothers and husbands of my sisters who are nurses, and I respect that. But that's not something that I really wanted to do. Being an educator is something that I think God placed me in this world to do, and I'm very, very lucky that I get well compensated for that.
So, Tazi, before, I mean, I really love that the fact of being that satisfaction. There are people who do things and gain the satisfaction, but the environment we live in is not one that thrives just on being satisfied. Because you can want to do what you're doing, get the satisfaction, you have bills to pay. Now, I'm talking to you. You have been here for a while. What are you doing to encourage other African immigrants? Because think about it. PG County and probably Montgomery County, those are the highest, they have the highest number of African immigrants, at least in this area. You know, who are those who are teaching these kids? We don't expect others to teach our kids for us. So what is it you guys, teachers, are doing to encourage others to become teachers like you?
Oh my goodness! When I became a teacher, I was the first African to accept a teaching position in Prince George's County, and perhaps the first foreigner. Think about that. Uh, but I am so lucky that I've been privileged to have so many people who have been able to copy my examples. And I will tell you this. Uh, I remember a conversation I had with a lady who graduated from uh, ENS, the higher cycle of ENS in Yaoundé, and taught in Cameroon for, I don't know, 15, 20 years, came to the United States, wanted to go into nursing, but somehow, by happenstance, she ran into me and she told me she had just begun a nursing program. And I asked her, did you enjoy being a teacher in Cameroon? She said, yes. I said, well, if you, if you, if you love what you were doing in Cameroon, why would you want to do anything different? She thought, she thought going into nursing was going to give her more money. Anyway, long story short, I eventually hired her as a teacher. And honestly, if you ask her today, she will tell you whatever she earns today gives her not just plenty of money, but also satisfaction. I remember a Cameroonian teacher that I hired. Woman, this lady was a professor in Cameroon, ended up in Kentucky as a university lecturer. And when I spoke to her and I told her how much we were going to compensate her, she accepted she decided to accept a teaching position. We offered her a teaching position, and I think she makes really good money. What I'm saying is, over the years, I will tell you this: I have hired not less than uh, 40, 50 Cameroonians that I have personally hired, who are now teachers in my school system. Uh, but the hundreds of Cameroonians who have come in ever since I became a teacher, uh, who have come in and who are now teaching in either Montgomery County or Prince George's County. And I meet with these people regularly. And of course, what I do is to mentor all of them, to let them know that if you are teaching, make sure you enroll in a program that trains you to become an administrator. That way, if you want, I mean, when you're an administrator, you get to earn a lot more money than a teacher. And so if you want that satisfaction, but there are some of us who are passionate about impacting lives. And I tell you this, um, it, last year, I had a very amazing experience. First day of school, there were parents who lined up to get their kids in the building. The first two parents who were in line were Cameroonians. One of them had just migrated here. Amazingly, this young man was an Ambazonia fighter, as I later on came to find out, who eventually found his way here through South America, Central America, and enrolled their child in my school. I've been very, very privileged that a good number of my students who go to different schools that I've been involved with in the United States, have been children of Cameroonian immigrants. And I keep telling them, uh, as long as you're in the United States, you need to go into a profession that gives you satisfaction. Not because, look, you can be in the most amazing profession, which gives you lots of money, but if it doesn't give you satisfaction, that's not good enough.
Thank you very much again, Bitazi, and I'm sure I speak for you, and I'm sure of those who are listening, those who are watching. If there are any people interested in getting a job in a PG County or to become a teacher, they should be
Absolutely.
able to reach out. And Bitazi, again, with 27 years teaching experience and being an administrator, he knows how to help people navigate and get into the system. Now, Dr. Minang, Let me come to your story. You became a nurse and decided to go and get a PhD. Tell us about that experience. What motivated you? I am tempted to think that your husband is he has a PhD. I think he's a virologist or something. He has working in the lab trying to get a vaccine for HIV/AIDS. Okay, but what is it that motivated you to want to go and get a PhD when you were already a nurse, impacting lives already?
So, good. Thank you so much for that question. A lot of people have asked me that question over this 4 year into this program, and the honest answer is, as a nurse and as a clinical director for our agency, I found myself about 4, 5, 6 years ago just stuck in the agency with how to provide the best care for our individuals. The few people that are listening to us now that were present at my dissertation defense probably heard this story. But this journey all started with us providing services, and I felt as a nurse that providing those services where I wasn't doing justice to the individuals we were serving within our agency. And we served specifically, we're providing private duty nursing services to individuals that are very fragile, mostly kids that are at home with vent and trach and G-tube feeding. And I felt really bad about the way we were providing these services. There was just so much gap in how these services are provided. When you look at the way these kids are taken care of in hospitals, in nursing homes, the quality of clinical care that's being given at home was not even near what is being given in the hospital. And that is what drove me back into education to seek an advanced degree. I felt like I needed the tools to be able to improve the care we gave. And so I enrolled in this program, and I talked to the chair of the program. She told me a lot more about that. The program was called a PhD program in Health Services Administration. So when I talked with them and they told me a lot more about the program, I can tell you this is the most rewarding thing I have done in terms of my career, in terms of the clients I serve. Because just going through this program, I was able to realize that I was sitting on what data. In school, they would tell you it's data. But between you and I, ordinary people, it is just the work we've done. And if you look at what you've done, you can see patterns, you can see trends, you can see things that you've done in the past that you can make changes on. And when I was looking at these things, it did not make any sense to me. But after this program, I look at every single thing we do in our agency, every single outcome that's produced as a data set, a data point that I can analyze, that I can come back and say, well, we did this measure, but looking at what came out of it in clinical notes, that measure did not work. So we need to look at another way of doing it. Or we did this measure and looking at the clinical notes, this measure worked exceptionally. So we need to intensify and make sure that got done. So a short answer was I was frustrated where we were as an agency and the type of care we were giving as an agency. And I thought going back to school to get the tools I needed was the best thing. And I can tell you it was the best thing that ever happened, because we run the agency now based on trends, based on QA data points, based on what our clinical outcomes have been with other people that we've worked with. We're not just making it as we go, so to speak, as we were doing when we started.
So two things, Dr. Minang, congratulations. But I would like, you have mentioned the agency a couple of times. Can you give us the name of the agency? And secondly, can you tell us whether you are hiring and how can people, if they want to get to the agency, what they need to do?
Okay, thank you, Lambert. I work and a co-owner of Optimal Healthcare. So we do home care and we also do case management for individuals with developmental disability in the state of Maryland. So we hire social workers or individuals that have if you have a bachelor's in life sciences and you're interested in getting into the social work field, you can work with us as a case manager, case managing services for individuals with developmental disability. So that is one of the things that I would like to put out for community, because I know a lot of
Dr. Mina, I think your network has a problem. It's breaking up a lot. If you can maybe change where you're sitting or get to a better point, because I have some other thing that I want to follow up. So maybe change where you're sitting.
Tell anybody on the Wi-Fi to get off the Wi-Fi. Tell them to free the line, to free the bandwidth.
Oh, okay. Did you hear what Aben said?
That's the expert.
That's the expert. So, check the connection again. Get off the Wi-Fi and let's see. Let me get to Aben, then I'll come back to you to have that conversation. So, Aben, you have been in Cameroon for 2 years.
2.5.
What can you show as results?
Yeah, that is a very good question, because we have really been ghosting in our efforts. And I say this based on your question. Every time people will try to get me on platform like yours, I would say everybody talks in Cameroon. If we started something to show skills, the difference between skills and theory is that it's demonstrative. And so let that go as part of our marketing campaign. We want to build things that in a setting like yours, we can say this is what we've been able to do rather than what we are going to do. And so we've been, as a company, we are 2.5 years as the division. The academic division is 8 months old. In 8 months, we've started with almost 55 learners. And our program runs level 1, level 2, level 3. Our effort is to, it's like you're thinking of a soldier, but you're thinking of a soldier that has all the materials if he was in the desert. Like if he's looking for water, he does not have to call for backup. So to train people with that kind of a skill set, with that kind of a mandate, we in the level 1, you say you want to do IT, you want to do business or whatever, but you're going to go through an orientation course and where you learn a bunch of soft skills. We do the 4 C's: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. Those are those soft skills that we think, regardless of your career. I'll just summarize it this way. If you wanted to become a builder, a carpenter, or you wanted to become a nurse, there's a hard skill, there's a core set there's a body of knowledge that you need to do. We can do that, but that's not our emphasis, because you will see people who have studied the same thing with you, but other people are performing you. We think what sustains education, what sustains learning is the soft skills. So we focus on that as on the foundation. If you're a nurse and you don't have good customer service, trust me, you get a lot of complaint and Dr. Minang will fire you within a week. You could have gone to that nurse exam and they had 100% in every test, but they don't have a job because people can't work with them. They don't have communication skills. They don't have collaboration skills. So we are building a modern workforce. All our kids go through these soft skills and a digital skill program. That's why it was easy for us to sustain during COVID, because in the digital skill program, you learn Google Drive, Google Meet, Google Hangout, Zoom, all of this. Skype is part of the curriculum. I'm talking about October 2019 teaching this stuff. And then in February of this year, these kids took it to all over the place. So we give you those digital skills that you need in the workplace. Then when you finish, you choose now a program. There are 2 sets of programs. You can choose a program that we have curated, which is the one that I encourage all our learners. People who come from the outside, they go into our certification programs. Those certification programs, their curriculum or body of knowledge is designed by the vendors. Those vendors are not in Yaoundé. They're in the UK. They're in New York. Our skill program is because we are looking at the challenges in Cameroon and we have brought in stuff that is outside. So you can see cloud computing and then you can do AWS solution architect. Both of them is cloud computing, but our cloud computing program gives you the fundamentals. You spend a lot of time. It's 8 months. The AWS program is 3 months, because that is what is required. So that is a level 2. And then because I have a consulting branch and a digital branch, we have a data driven. I want to say some things Dr. Minang was saying about data. I was very interested in that. We have a data driven consulting firm. These kids, we also have BPO outsourcing projects from the US. I spent 15 years as an IT person in the US in 13 countries. The way I got my job, I'm transferring that to Cameroon because I was a contractor. I've never been an employee in my life. So I always used to get contracts in all of these countries. So I still have those relationships. So I'm bringing those jobs. So I have data entry jobs. We have VDI, the same thing I was doing. So I'm training those kids. I don't know if they're watching this. Half of them already have a job. They just don't have the skill set yet. I have kids that we train them just in level 1 and they go get jobs in Douala. So let me give you some results. I will not call name. We have people that they came in the level 1, the modern workforce program, and they got promotions in their job. One of them is the head of a banking in Douala, a very big bank. I'll call the bank UBC. We have a young girl that came from Bamenda because of our level 1. I'm telling you, they have not yet finished the program. And she was in the Yaoundé setting, and they sent her to control the whole Northwest region in their pharmacy distribution service. We have people that left UB and never seen a computer before. Today, they are teaching people on data visualization using Microsoft Power BI. Those are results. Those things are on our testimonial page. And we have just started, right? It's 8 months. So it is skill-based education. And I want all of the people that I've trained to work for Casitech because I have big project. We have a project in Senegal that starts in 2021. I hope this COVID doesn't affect it. Anyway, I'm just going to say it. And I'm thinking these are the kids that will do it. But I went to Casitech with to Cameroon with a 10-year plan. So I'm not going to tell you that we've made it. It's a 10-year plan. This is not a country that if you cannot budget for at least 5 years, don't go. I'll tell anybody watching this, don't go because nothing will happen, right? We talk to clients in BSEC Bank about automating the way that they can, because the Cameroon government, the finance, they check every bank to see transaction. So I went to BSEC and I made a cloud automation system. I made that presentation 1.5 years ago. They just called me last week. So if you were trying to do business in Cameroon and the client is going to respond 1.5 years after you make a presentation, you have to think about the business that you want to do down there. So so those are some of our results. I can use every single learner, all 55 of them, and tell you their story, and you hear amazing things. But we are not there, right? None of them have finished their 3 years. They don't like me saying this because they think they have skills. But that's the thing with Cameroon. If you're looking at somebody that did not know something, they knew something, they get excited. And I tell them that microwave jubilation is not sustainable. So we will produce our first batch in October of this year. With COVID, I'll probably push it to November. And I hope that I can come back here and show you real results. But I can talk about a couple of cases that are in my head. So those are some of the results. And I just want to add this. We are not going to change anything. You see Tazi say he's coming to Cameroon. The way Casitech Academy was designed was to be the labs of all the schools. Because you can never take just skills, right? Skill is actually technician level. It's technician level. Because if you want somebody to be a doctor, you're not going to put them in a skill program. They still need to know what the organ is and certain things in the theoretical side. So our model was to be the lab for some education. We've still not gotten the approval because we can't even explain it to the ministries that are in charge, vocational training, all of them, the higher education. They don't even understand what we're talking about because it's a French system. We have a lot of institutional barriers trying to do what we're doing because what we are presenting is so new. Every time people that work with me, I say, boss, we have this competitor, these schools, they have started talking about this. I'm like, no, Claire, we don't have a competition because we're pioneers. You have competition where you can say, this person is doing what you're doing. And, me and you, we are doing the same thing. That's when we have competition. We are different. That's theoretical. This is skill-based. So if you ask the reason why I'm bringing this is say Casitech has not yet been understood. It's partly my fault. I take it 100%, but I want people to understand it based on the result, not what I can tell you on this interview. So we are still there. I promise you, when we have the result, I will use each of the results to say, okay, this is what I'm doing. So I still have some like 3 or 4 months or 6 months to go. With this COVID, maybe a year. But we'll keep pushing.
So, Tazi, thank you very much. And you mentioned something there, the institutional framework. I was surprised to learn this week, my daughter's teacher said this is the last week of school. They're supposed to get off school on the 16th. And I'm already worried as to, well, what is happening next? So what do you have to say about what we as parents should be looking forward to next? Are we going back? Are the kids going back to school in September, or we are going to come back to the same thing? And what are some of the things you principals are already looking at?
You know, COVID-19 has has posed a huge challenge to humanity. We are now learning to cope, looking for ways to cope with things that no one ever imagined. I mean, as long as we know, there has always been a schoolhouse with a teacher in the classroom, with here in the United States, probably 25 students inside the classroom. And then suddenly we are now forced to say, well, it's not going to be the same. So school systems across the United States are now beginning to say, how do you establish social distancing in a school building? So there is a debate right now as to what to do coming September or end of August when schools resume. Are we going to have one set of students coming in the morning and then another set of students coming in the afternoon? In which case, instead of 25 to 30 students in the classroom, you have 15 students, so that we are able to have social distancing. So many things are being considered right now. Just so you know, this coming Monday is the first day we are going to officially return to work. I mean, administrators. I am, well, I mean, during this COVID-19 thing, I've pretty much gone back to the building like every Wednesday. I go in to take care of paperwork, do payroll and all of that. But coming this Monday, all of us, the administrative staff is going to go back to work. The school system has, the superintendent has had a team which sat down and figured out, how do you go back to work without having, everybody sit around the table as the administration has always done to discuss, to plan on how we are going to wrap up the end of the school year. But also, we are now beginning we have received instructions on how to allow teachers who have been away from the building for 3 months to come back to the building in order to prepare for the end of the school year. Most of these people left and went home without even taking their personal stuff. So, but the thing is, we can only allow about 20 to 25 teachers at one time in the building to be able to come and get their stuff and leave. And so coming September, when schools resume, we are still waiting for instructions from the superintendent's office as to what exactly we are going to do in order to continue to teach, to make sure that students learn. But I think the only thing we really know right now is that it's not going to be the same as it has been in the past. We are very, very lucky that we have a superintendent who brings in the very best minds in order to be able to plan on what we are going to do. But Americans are passionate about their children, and the schoolhouse is a very, very delicate place. All it takes is for one student or one teacher, one individual to get infected, and they infect the entire building. So we what I should let you know is that we are providing an opportunity for kids whose parents feel that they need remedial education to be able to sign them up for the summer. So I was informed a couple of days ago that I'm going to have to spend time, an extra month in the month of July when I'm usually on vacation. I'm going to be on duty and making sure that I take care of summer school, which is okay because it's an extra month of salary for me. I'm not complaining. But you know, come September, we are going to have an entirely different setup because the challenge is to make sure that you do not have too many people in the same spot. The best time of the day for students is like the time when they go to the cafeteria for lunch, because now, as an administrator, I usually have about 250 or 300 students right there in the cafeteria interacting with me. That's when they get to talk to their friends. They get to do their gossiping and all of that. Uh, this time around, we may have to do things differently in the sense that the very same space that is capable of accommodating 400 students, we may only be able to provide lunch for 100 students if they come to the cafeteria. One option is to get them to eat lunch in the classroom. But like I said, it's going to be a huge challenge. And, fortunately, we have people who are going to look into the logistics.
That is great news to hear that there's going to be summer school. I'm sure that some kids would already be preparing and rejoicing to hear that at least they can, even within some limited settings and with rules and regulations for social distancing, they would be able to have a semblance of what they have missed over the last couple of months. Dr. Minang, we were talking about your agency and what you provide, and I would like to hear more about what you are doing in order to prepare. And just in terms of follow-up, I'm wondering, because I know that you also, I said in the beginning you are a wife, you are a mother, and I just learned that you have at least 11 kids that you have to take care of. So you have a husband to take care of, you have 11 kids to take care of, then you have
The
an
whole school.
agency. So how are you managing all this? And isn't that too much?
God's grace, I will tell you, the grace of God is sufficient enough for me. So it's been interesting because people ask me that.
I think again we are having some technical issues there. The people, hello, Dr. Minang. Okay, while I get her to sort that out again, let me transition to something again. Let me come back to you, Tazi, because Aben mentioned something about institutional framework. We are living through very trying moments in America where we have had people protesting for over the last 10 days. It has been interesting. Maybe wrong choice of words to say is interesting. It's a sad reality, and that reality has been the fact of George Floyd, who was, killed by a police officer with a knee on his neck, and the gentleman handcuffed, crying and begging, "I cannot breathe." And this is not the first time we're getting this. It has gotten to a point where, because we're talking about this, I can't watch TV in my house anymore with my daughter because I can't watch this. 2 days ago, last week, I'm trying to get that off to read it to you also, that you hear what my daughter decided to write a letter to the president because she was really scared. This is a 9-year-old child and she's writing and complaining about the fact that what is this how our life is going to be? Are we going to be suffering like this? Dear Donald Trump, my name is Kayla. I'm a big fan of yours. It's not fair that white people got to harm the black people. Corona is enough for everybody. Can you please make it fair that white people don't harm black people? We don't harm. Please don't harm us. That will be the right thing. And wear a mask. It won't make you look stupid. I promise. But I mean, we are laughing. That's my 9-year-old daughter writing to the president of the United States because she's scared. She's asking me whether white people are going to be killing them just because they are black. The trauma that is created in that situation. My daughter cannot watch TV anymore. I mean, I normally watch CNN, so I now have to watch their other cartoons just because every time she sees that, she's scared. Again, that brings me back to a question that I started off with. Many people are scared of becoming teachers, again, because of similar thing. Racism is not just about black versus white. That is the technical thing. But even in our school systems, we find that there are teachers who are scared. There are people who are scared to become teachers. The torments that teachers face with students, they're told that they have accents, isn't it? They are told that the food they eat smells. I mean, how are you dealing with this racism issue within the school system? And what can I tell my daughter that this is not the situation? Is one time when I know that down the road is going to happen again.
Let me start off with saying that I love the way you are bringing up your daughter. At her age, at the age of 9 years old, she's already an advocate. She's known that she can appeal, she can write to the president. That's the promise of America. And
Yeah.
I get up every day and I hope that we on our continent in Africa, that we are able to get to a point where children grow up knowing that they could petition. I just can't imagine a child who is 9 years old writing to a head of state of any African country, essentially reminding them that they matter. So that's the promise of America. My daughter went to the White House last week. She was one of the people who went down to DC and laid down tear gas and all of that to protest. I appreciate that because that's what America has taught her to do. That, in the face of injustice, you could really stand up and speak up. Look, I'll tell people this. When I decided to go into the public education profession in the United States, I was very aware of the fact that I was going to face discrimination at every stage, but that did not deter me because in every profession, we as Black people come in with a pre-existing condition, which is being Black. I've gone back. I had the privilege of studying in France and in Canada before I came to the United States, and I go back to these places regularly. And when I go back to Paris, I see people that I knew in Paris when I was a young student there who are doing exactly today what they were doing 30, 40 years ago. Uh, America has more promise than any other place in the world, including Cameroon. In Cameroon, you are going to be discriminated against uh, on the basis of the tribe you come from, or whether you are Anglophone. This is exactly why young people are fighting in Cameroon, in Amazonia against a system that uh, 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 has been very, very unfair to Anglophones. If you are, uh, 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 if Amazonia, if a country came into existence called Amazonia, you're going to have a certain level of discrimination. But what you do is to let people know that do your best to get the best education you could get. Dr. Minang kind of mentioned that because I am right now in a doctoral program at my age, in a doctoral program, because I want that when I go out to do anything else, I want to be the very, very best. And that's what I teach my children. If you get in whatever profession you choose to get in, to reduce the chances that you will be discriminated, you have to educate yourself. You have to train yourself to be the very, very best at it. Coming in as an African who chose to go into an area where there was no African, I can't change my accent just because I wanted someone to comply. But when I went inside the classroom, I made sure I was the best teacher. It was very, very difficult for me to be able to function in an American classroom. I eventually became an administrator. When I go in as an administrator, I make sure that I am the very best administrator in the building. Those of us who come in with a certain discrepancy, you know that you have to find ways to overcome your discrepancy to be the very best at what you are doing. If you are the very best at what you are doing, the systems are going to end up realizing that they just can't get rid of you. That's what I teach. Like the kids that every single time I go into the school building, my school is almost 70% Hispanic. Most of these young kids are the ones that came in from Mexico, came in from El Salvador, came in from Guatemala. I tell them that now that you are in America, you have to make sure that you outperform your parents. You have to make sure that if your parents were not able to go to school because there was a civil war in their country and they escaped to America, you now have an opportunity to excel, which means in the context of America, you go to college. After college, you find a profession that you really like. If you do that, then the systemic racism that has been directed at Black people, at Hispanic people, at Asian Americans, to a great extent, if you are good, there is no way somebody can keep you down.
So, Dr. Minang, can we hear you now? I don't know whether you're serious.
I think so.
The devil is
had
working
to
over time.
like double time. I had to go get some people off the fire.
Good. Okay. So again, we just transitioned into the very call it negative, very nefarious side of life with this racist, this police brutality in the United States. You can take off from where you are, but this again exacerbated what we already knew within the context of COVID-19. COVID-19 disproportionately impacted African Americans, isn't it? Yeah. The inequalities that we find, they had. I'm glad Tazi used the term predisposition, the predisposing conditions, and because of this, now most of us, were swept off. And so, within the context of your agency, and you can talk about this in different ways. I mean, you can handle the racism thing in a different way, but we're looking at it in terms of how are you, that institution that you have, how are you working to ensure that these kind of things do not happen? What are you doing for your kids? I read out a little letter from my daughter. What conversations are you having with them, and how is that coming through?
So, within the context of what is currently going on, like you said, it's hard to explain it to the children. I mean, I have in my home the 11 I have range from 22 all the way down to 5. And we're all talking about it at the dinner tables, and we're all talking about it and watching it on TV as it's unfolding. So it's been really difficult explaining it to especially the 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-olds to kind of get them to understand that it is not correct, and there are certain things you have to do in this country to make sure you don't find yourself in such situations. as an immigrant, as a Black person, it's been difficult to have that conversation, but it's one we have, and we continue to have every day on our dinner table when we sit down, because it comes up. But I would like to say that I have this favorite quote that goes with me almost everywhere from the Bible. It says that what the devil meant for evil, God always makes it work for good for those, for his people. And I am very, very encouraged when I look at the world today. What that cop meant for evil when he sat on George Floyd's neck and knelt on it for 8 minutes and something seconds, the Lord has turned it and worked for the good of the nation, for the good of the Black people. Because you look at all the people coming out, and it is not Black people coming out. It is white people coming out to say this is wrong, this should be changed. It is so encouraging. It's not only in this country, it is not only in Minnesota, it is everywhere around the world. And people are coming out and standing up for justice for everybody. And so I really look at that, and I'm encouraged that I live in a society where I might go through this, but I'm very, very encouraged that my children will not face this. Because when I see the people out there today that are coming out, I know they are raising their own kids to know that they have to treat my children as equal. And so I am very, 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 very hopeful in the future that we look to as we deal with this issue today.
I mean, yes, it's nice to hope. It's nice to look forward to, but remember that we have lived with this for a while. I mean, after Eric Gardner and the rest of the people, one did not expect that this would come up again. But let me get to Aben. I'm sure you have a different experience.
Yeah.
There's some form of institutional racism in Cameroon that you have experienced in one form or another. You have a knee on your neck in some forms. Beat as a reference it. Can you share with us what you think about the situation?
It's I'll try to be very political here, because the truth is, even if I was specific to Cameroon, I'll mirror it to my experience across other African countries. But yeah, we are looking at the situation where our courses have been challenged because we went for certain accreditations with the ministries, and they asked for the French version of it. And I had to spend almost 4 or 5 months to explain that if my program was not built by me, most of the skills that we are pulling are partnership with U.S. universities. These universities, you cannot come to the United States and ask them to translate their content to French because you want to go to Cameroon. You're partnering with them. You're not, and even when you say that, and you understand that the motivation behind that is just, they call it motif for something. It's just to literally shut you down. But we are fighting other forms of marginalization with all these nicks on our neck. Casitech is an institution where girls are free to study coding. My thing is because one of the things that I personally saw, my sister got me in her foundation 7 years ago, women, and I'm a guy too, but you see a marginalized group in Africa is girls and women. So I started this program, which we work on the foundation. Now that I've had an institution, it's a women-led institution. Like, we promote women in ways in every single thing we do. If we are talking about the topic, we show how it affects the female. The goal there was to empower them. I've never been in a society. I've been privileged to work in 13 countries. I've never been in a country where you cannot mirror the good in the way they treat the women. So I don't want to go out of racism, but that's we didn't have a camp when the TV came on. You're talking about your daughter writing to the president. We are starting a coding camp for kids between the age of 9 and 14 to learn coding, because I told you we are futuristic. If you look at the future where Tazi was saying a good education can make you resist some of these marginalization tactics, you really have to put yourself, when you're in this position of education, into the solution providers. In Cameroon, when somebody's above 18, I've realized that you cannot tell them anything. Nothing. I'm not, maybe you guys in education can tell me, but I've tried. It doesn't work. But you can affect those kids between the age of 9 to 14. You give them skills that they don't grow up looking at the white person as a god. Technology, I have an ad that I'm going to run. I tell people that, can you imagine living in a world where 1 out of 400 million people, they don't know how to speak English? Like, that's how coding is. So if our kids of today, they want to fight the police force and all this, they have to work with certain type of pride. So of course you cannot provide all the solution, but what are the resources that we think we have? Like I said, we are empowering women by making them self-sufficient. We have entrepreneurship programs for women in Casitech, for them to try to innovation and entrepreneurship. That's the program. Then we have this girls code 2. The girls code 2, we have 11 girls that each of them costs us at least 2,000 a year, free of charge. And then now we are going to do the kids in the coding. I really think that in a future where technology will dominate, to make Africans to become producers of technologies, we'll have a bigger way to fight racism, marginalization, like we're talking about in places like Cameroon and elsewhere in the world. So when this conversation started, that's all I was thinking about. I try not to make my emotions rise up because I can easily, this thing makes you so angry. The TV can program you into a depressed state. And when you're in a position of leadership, you have to find solution providers. So since this thing has started, I've just associated myself with those who are looking at the long term. You just said it, Eric Garner. Next year, we'll have another hashtag. What have we done? And I don't want to speak on others, but I want to look in the mirror and say, what did you do? And we're going to be doing that. We're going to run these summer camps for coding to 6 weeks, and then follow these kids, try to orient them into a career in IT so they grow up and they can talk to whoever in the world, wherever in the world, with some level of confidence because they don't feel like they're lacking.
Thank you very much. There's somebody following up Charles and Chang, and he has put up something. I want to address that to you, Dr. Minang. There is a Cameroonian lady. I mean, the Black Lives Matter movement was out in DC this week, and there's a Cameroonian lady who came out and she was confronting them, and she has made the waves. And Charles says she seems to be getting tracked for the wrong reason. She's confronting the Black Lives Matter movement and saying, why are you concerned only about this? Why are you not concerned about the black kids being killed in Chicago, black kids or black people being killed in Southeast DC? I don't know what you're seeing and what is your take about that?
I have seen it, and it's a pity because I think she's looking at it from the wrong point of view. It is when you talk about all organizations, they are formed with one goal in mind. And yes, Black Lives Matter is formed to make sure that all Black lives matter, but it was formed for a particular reason. And so when she confronts Black Lives Matter and she's saying it's a joke, she misses the point. She misses their goal in life. And that is what I would have her go do. Go read up on this organization and find out what they were created for, why they were created. Yes, a side point of their organization can be standing up to problems that are faced within the Black community. But there are other organizations for that. And if she really wants to help, she would seek out those other organizations and help them come into her community and help them come into her neighborhood to do the advocacy she needs within her neighborhood. What she is doing is targeting another organization that has a different goal, a different vision, and a different mission. And she is trying to water down what they do because she would like them to do something else that she could have stood up for. And I would really just like to take her to task for that and ask her to stop talking about Black Lives Matter and to do something about the issues she's raising within her own community in DC.
Tazi, do you have any comments about that too?
Yes, there's something that people do not understand about America, which is that America is the only place in the world, or at least it started with America and then it eventually migrated to Europe. And I think to a certain extent, Asia is experiencing that right now, but not Africa. America is where human beings actually sat down and said, this is what we expect for every individual to be treated if we are going to recognize that they are human beings. When the America was founded as an experiment, there were certain guarantees in the Constitution that someone cannot, the police should protect citizens. We don't have that in Cameroon. I mean, it is not in the African psyche that it is the responsibility of the police to protect the citizen. It is guaranteed in the American Constitution that it is the responsibility of the state to protect the citizen. What that young lady was missing is that you cannot justify someone's pain, dismiss someone's pain by saying that, oh, someone else is experiencing the same pain. As long as you are a U.S. citizen, and I would even dare to say, when you are in the United States, there is a guarantee that you should not be killed for being in the United States, because you're a human being. What the young lady was saying, she was raising a very valid issue, which is that Black people kill Black people. But I think she chose the wrong place to raise this issue, because it is, she was acting as if it is okay for white police officers to kill a Black person because Black people kill Black people. That is a terrible proposition. And my hope is that that young lady is going to have an opportunity to learn that in this nation, and someone else, I saw a video of someone who appears to be an Anglophone Cameroonian, who did a video, one of these videos you see on WhatsApp, saying that, oh, why are Cameroonians in the United States protesting when they are not protesting over the Ambazonia issue? And I say, honestly, Cameroonians in the United States are protesting over the systemic discrimination against Anglophones in Cameroon. Not everybody has to go out and make a video to justify that. Okay, but substantially, we cannot say that because Cameroonians are being slaughtered in Cameroon, it is all right for a white police officer to kill a Black man in the United States. No. If the role of the police in the United States is to protect the citizen, not to kill them. And what we saw on that video, look, I've been here long enough to recognize the fact that this is probably not the worst it has been. And like Mr. Aben said, in 1 year from now, we probably wouldn't be talking about this, because I've seen so many of these situations. What is different this time is that you have the power of the cell phone camera. Dr. Minang said something earlier, which is God makes things for a certain purpose. And the very same God who created that white police officer to be able to go out and kill an innocent Black person has enabled human beings to be able to invent something we call the camera, which is able to record. You see this particular incident from different angles. I think back in 1991, I was already a classroom teacher when a young man in Los Angeles was brutally beaten up by the police officers. Fortunately, there was already a video recording, but only one video recording. Since then, we now have video cameras. Look at the level of atrocities being committed against our people back home. Millions of these incidents occur every day, but usually, if we are able to just see one situation in which one individual is being brutalized, it makes a very, very big difference. You know, George Floyd's death may have redeemed mankind because it has given Americans an opportunity. The fact that so many people were able to record that beating, to give Americans an opportunity to really sit back and say, you know what, is this the society that the forefathers of this nation in 1776, when they laid down a guiding document called the Constitution that was going to lead America? Is this the society that the forefathers really sat down and thought about? It's giving us an opportunity to really sit back and think. And even the most racist Americans, white people do not know how privileged they are. But I think the killing of this young man has given so many people an opportunity to just sit back and think, you know what, is this the society we always dreamt to that America was going to become?
Thank you. So, I mean, the remainder of the time, I want to be respectful of you all, and I'm very, very much obliged that you took off your time this Saturday. But Aben, there's something we have not talked about, and I really wanted you to talk about that in terms of infrastructure, because the reason why we said it at the beginning, the kids here were able to pick up laptops. They had all this at their disposal, and yet it did not happen the way it was anticipated, because we are having a 30% success rate. Sure. Now, there's a problem. There's a different problem we're tackling. What is the situation in Cameroon?
Yeah, man, this is a very good question. If America, a developed country, already developed and maintaining that development, has a 30% adoption during COVID, I will start with this. If you look at COVID and education, the bridge that makes education possible during COVID, whoever is doing education, is technology. And you're looking at a well-infrastructured country can only get 30% adoption. I will assume that in Cameroon is 0. And this is not even just like an insult, it's across Africa, right? And the technology, there's a particular technology that enables education. It's called cloud. Before COVID, we did a paper in Casitech. It got 3,000 likes on LinkedIn. I did not just write about cloud in Cameroon. I wrote about cloud adoption in Africa. And at the time, we're looking at South Africa. That was at a maturity rate of 30. Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, that they have infrastructure. The rest of the country did not even know about. They had not even talked about the conceptualization. COVID in Cameroon disseminated education. Cameroon, though, came up with an innovative idea. So let me give the little bit of spark, which was, I think it was Dochi Joma, her ministry, that came up with, we take teachers and put them in front of CLTV cameras, and everybody tuned to CLTV class 1 and 2. And even in that thing, you still saw, I would say, marginalization, because there was a report that shows that you are teaching class 1, French and English. The French teacher spent 1 hour, 30 minutes. The English teacher spent 30, right? But it's the same, you're supposed to, even with that, but let's go back to it. The lack of infrastructure in technology should tell you that there was no relationship between COVID and education that could have been adopted beyond 10%. We have online classes before COVID. What was our experience before that? We had to trick the system, because when you put people on Camtel bandwidth, it's not even possible to teach online in Cameroon. Let me say it so that anybody can challenge. You see how we are doing this, and Dillis is going in and out. If a teacher was talking and a student went out, when that student comes in the US, a child can say, "Hey, sir, can you repeat yourself?" In Cameroon, because of the respect of the culture, he's gone. And it's not like it's that student's fault problem. I have not had one successful class since 2019 without interruption. If I had 5 people in class, only 2 will go through for 20 minutes, then the connection goes. So I could just imagine during COVID when everybody, even some government institute, were depending on that bandwidth. I knew that it crashed. So you asked a question that I'm struggling to summarize it, but all I can see is negative, 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 negative. It is not possible to talk about COVID and education in Cameroon because that bridge does not exist. That bridge, that technology bridge where Tazi students tell you that they bought you hear what he said in the US, they gave them laptops and tablets. Where? I mean, we had a PE laptop from Povia that does not have more than 1 gigabyte RAM. Even if you use that laptop that they purchase, you can't take an online class because there's not enough compute power to enable a child to be more than 20 minutes online in Cameroon. So those are just facts. And I'm sorry to be this negative, but we had an innovative response with the CLTV, so that was positive.
Yeah, but there's some innovation that you shared out about your students having to sleep between 7 p.m. and
yes, that's a good one. I think you've seen this in other places. So this is how we solve our problems in Casitech before COVID. I don't know, in COVID, they are just doing it. So in Cameroon, at 12 o'clock, the internet for 2 gigabytes goes from 1,000 to 200 francs. So we give students assignments, and then we need to come online at 12 midnight so that they can buy 200 francs and watch. And by the way, you're not doing it live. You record yourself, and then you put it on an LMS. Then they can stream it because it's uninterrupted. So, but that one-to-one learning is very limited. It's very limited because they are not there to ask me a question on something that we've recorded. The second thing was that we had to use cell phones only because when you use their laptops, nobody is running Windows Pro. They are using even Windows Home, Windows 10 Home. Let me not go into the details. But the innovation was they can only take their classes from 12:30 a.m. to 2 a.m. and they don't have the money. 200 francs is even big. That's whole meal for a day. So you had to make sure that the recording does not go above 500 MBs, and they should buy it after the telecoms go midnight where everybody is sleeping. So those are some of the innovation we're doing before COVID. I don't want to tell you what happened after COVID because a lot of, even Camtel started warning rates. They started warning like 10,000 for 50 gigabytes a month. So I was always sending them those promotions. I am subscribed with MTN, Orange, not like subscribe, but their marketing sites. Every time they make a promotion on data, I send it to my students just for them to keep learning. So it's very challenging, but I will not say there was more than 10% adoption during COVID and education. If you did not have CLTV, none of your children learned anything. And now we've gone back to school. And I want to just say something about our topic here is COVID-19. There's a guy, an educator, Bishop Cleder. He's part of this COVID thing because he has produced some kind of a solution to the medication. He sits on the national board of COVID. The ministry, the government tells everybody to go back to school. He writes a document and says nobody in his diocese, in the Archdiocese of Douala, should go back to school. I don't know if you can put 2 and 2 together. Someone that is it's telling you that there's something about this school reopening that is coming from that lack of technology. So they are forcing these kids to go back to school when this virus has not been contained. And I don't think they have enough gear. And the bishop that is providing cure, the one person that should be able to say, yes, I work with the government, these kids to go back to school, is telling his own kids, his own children, don't step your leg in school. So put that 2 together and tell me if this reopening of Cameroon was a good thing. So it's terrible.
So for the remainder of the time, again, the second time, Dr. Mrs. Minang. So what advice do you have for parents? Now, again, I don't know whether the summer camp is going to take place this year, but what advice do you have for parents, given that after next week, schools are technically on vacation? What should parents be doing to catch up with their kids because of the disruption that COVID brought? And maybe you could share your own example from your own house, what you plan to do and all that.
So thank you for that. So for me, putting the kids on a structure has been the most important part of restructuring to address the situation of them doing distant learning. So I'll have to say to all parents, finding a space in your house that is called the education space. And that is the space, put them on a structured space where they know this is where we come to study. So there's no play here. That helped. Where I started off by saying when they all had their tablets, they could sit in different areas and just do their work. But I found they were not doing work. So I turned up my house upside down and actually did away with what we call a formal dining in our house and turned it into a classroom space. Every child has a desk and they have their laptop and their tablet there to work off of. And that is helping because I was able to make a structured schedule for them to follow. In the morning when they get up, after prayers from 9 all the way to 1 o'clock, they are in that space. They're doing their work. They're working on something productive. Then they take a break and they have snack at 11. And then after snack, they go back to work. They take a break again around 1 and they have lunch. And after lunch, they go out for free time and they can play. When they come back, they can read a book and then they can go to TV. It's very important. I think parents need to create the structure that mimics what the kids would have gotten if they got into school. And that helps them because every child thrives on that structure. The one other advice I need to give to parents is pay attention. Now your kids have devices in their hands that are linking them to the World Wide Web. And that is something that I have personally encountered. I had one of my child go on there and was Googling things that they had no business knowing about or seeing. Now these kids have access to the World Wide Web. Pay attention. Look at the things they are doing. I would like to have you, Lambert, look within our community for people like Hilaire, if they can share very good resources that we can use to monitor our children while they are on these devices and on the laptops. That is very, very important. The last thing I would like to say to parents is take the time to learn your kid. This has been a real good eye opener for me. I've learned that I have a child that is a self-starter. He starts, he goes by himself. I've learned that I have other children that I need to get them started, and then they will go by themselves. I've learned I have another child that I need to come every 30 minutes and redirect, and then he keeps up. So take the time to learn your children. I know what their learning styles are, and that will help you to support them. I applaud Hilaire for putting up the summer camp. And actually, I was thinking of starting to teach them on how to type and how to use the computer, because I just threw them up there and I can see them using their one hand to type. So I'm really applauding you for putting that up, and please share that information because I would like to get the kids on that. Parents should seek out online programs that are summer camps and have their children be part of those programs. Last but not least, Mr. Tazi would say this to you. The American school system is really great. They have a lot more resources than we Africans and we parents take advantage of because we miss to read most of the papers that come home with them. Read the papers. Now they're sending you lots of things by emails. Read those emails. Read the papers that come home because they're giving you free resources that you can use to help your children at home. And I think those few things would really help us to structure them as they go into the summer break.
Just so you know, those were lessons directly to me as a parent too. So, Tazi, you want to compliment, give what words do you have for both teachers who are now going to be going on vacation and students who will be at home, and to parents?
The first thing I want to mention is that I'm not exactly sure how it's going to function this year, but a resource that I've always recommended to immigrant parents, because most immigrant parents do not know this, it's that in every place in the United States, there's a certain department called Parks and Planning, which provides recreation for students during the summer. Remember that the school system we have here was designed for family, essentially affluent white families. back in the 18th century. And the school system was designed in such a way that kids had to go home during the summer. The reason you have this very long vacation is that older kids were able to go back and help parents. At the time when America was agrarian, they had to go back home and help their parents with harvesting crops. That's the reason you have this very long summer vacation, which is usually 2.5 months or sometimes 3 months long. Um, but as America transitioned into the industrial age and beyond, uh, states began to say, but if you have these children around for 2 months, for 3 months, what do you do with them? So they began to build libraries. Kids could go up to every single town in America has a library. But this is where most kids went went during the summer in order to engage in something they really like to do, which is reading. But they also different cities also established a network of swimming pools where kids could go and swim. The, the reason I'm bringing up this point is that you know African immigrants sometimes do not really know that that infrastructure is in place. There is something called Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. If any parent contacts Park and Planning right now, Park and Planning is already designing programs for young people during for the summer. You drop off your child probably at 9 a.m. and the child is they have to engage in some recreational activity, some learning activity. It's really not school. It's much more like play, but creative play. uh, some of these programs will take your child to uh, Six Flags and all of that. Uh, we know I have children who have learned for the first time, who learned how to swim when they were enrolled in such programs. Our kids need to know if they are going to function in America, they need to know what baseball is. They need, other than soccer, that is very natural with our people. These young people need to know what softball is, and parents should check out what the local Department of Park and Planning is providing for the summer. Um, and Mr. Aben said something about. I just want to digress and go to a different point. Said something about functioning in Cameroon. When you go, in order to function in Cameroon, especially for someone who has acquired their education here in the United States, someone who has worked here in the United States, you have to understand that it requires you to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
People are surviving in Cameroon and doing very well. But anyone who has functioned here in the United States, if you are going back home, you have to know that if you are prepared to step your expectations one level down, you are going to survive and do very well. It's probably my experiences as a traditional ruler. I'm a traditional ruler of a village in Cameroon.
Mm-hmm.
Have enabled, given me an opportunity to just be able to know how folks function in Cameroon. If you go to think about him, he finds out that it's possible that um, our telephone providers, cell phone providers in Cameroon have this package where at midnight, at 12:30, the price goes down. Those are little things. I'm in the process of starting a transportation company in Cameroon. But
Mm-hmm.
in order to do that, I had to go back home. In addition to the schooling we own in Cameroon, I had to go back home and look at the logistics. What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? When you look at that, because it's very easy for people to go to Cameroon. You go to Cameroon for 1 month. If you are going to Cameroon and you want to start a business in Cameroon, you have to prepare that to be able to start realizing some kind of profit from the business. after 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years. If you want to go to Cameroon today and start a business and you expect that you are going to make a profit in 1 year, because like we our school in Cameroon came online 1 year ago, and then suddenly we had kids had to go home because of the shutdown. We are now beginning to look at an aspect that we had kind of taken for granted, which is to buy laptops to make sure that every kid who comes to this school is able to get online. So those are little things that we have to look into, especially anyone going to Cameroon. Don't go to Cameroon for 3 weeks and expect that you are going to get any results, because just registering a business in Cameroon, you cannot fly from here to Cameroon and expect that you are going to register a business in 3 weeks. People you ship a container of supplies and you expect that, oh, you go to Cameroon and that your container is going to that you are going to clear your container from the port in Douala in 1 week's time. It just doesn't happen. You have to provide the opportunity to spend months really doing your groundwork before you get functional in Cameroon.
Thank you very much. And I just wanted to say comments from the audience. Dr. Dilis Minang on point. Please do a short video on the point for paysan parents and caregivers in quarantine. That's from CV Bello. And CV Bello was also asking, Tazi, glad to see you. Are you still involved with the NEA? I guess that's the National Education Association.
Yes.
So again, we have been on for 2 hours. That's too long. And I just want us to wrap up. But because we have talked about things for parents in the United States, things for teachers and students in the United States, Aben, so people who are watching you in Cameroon, what do you have to offer them now while COVID is still on, even though they're opening up, but post-COVID, what is it you are offering to the people?
Skills. I know it sounds so general, but skilled. And what we really offer is localized skill. We have come up with ways in which we've designed programs that, like I said, is development programs. You can use the same word, but like I started my conversation, a program that comes from the United States is maintenance program. That's a developed world. That's a structural world. That's where things are organized. So if you just go online and do self-learning, fine. But come to Casitech and put that same name and see what we have added. So we have to equip people in a different way than I would teach. So I'm actually doing training in the United States. I can already see the difference. But in Cameroon, what we do, our skill building program is really localized. It's localized to the fact that we're in a developing region. You need all of these tools. If I was learning IT here, I wouldn't bother about some of the associated skills that I have in my program in Cameroon. But in Cameroon, a developer has to first go through a lot of things. The fundamentals of computer science. We have to go into how to use their calculators and bring them down to programming syntax before they write their first code. I can do that in the US within 1 week. Because the day that person goes to the ATM, the day he gets on the metro or buys a plane ticket, those skills are subconsciously being programmed into them. So that is what we offer in Cameroon, skills. So we have a lot of programs on skills. We have business and IT skills. And we've brought in people that are expert in both. I am only on the IT side, but in my team, we have people that are really good in banking, logistics. Somebody was talking about logistics. And then, of course, the natural business processes where you're looking about how to design system and SOPs. So that's Casitech Academy. It's a skill building academy. Just check us out. I will leave with one thing though. The parents in Cameroon. We've talked about parents here. A lot of you don't have laptops and computers. The government may open things by September. Please come to Casitech. Bring your kid between the age. If it's a girl kid between the age of 9 and 14. The program that I'm launching for people in the United States, I'll let it run the whole year in Cameroon. For any girl between the age 9 and 14 can come learn the fundamentals of programming or computer science. Casitech has offered that program. It's on our website. It's continuous. But here in the United States, we are doing it in July 19 to August 21. online, because we can do that online too. Our program is from MIT. It's the MIT Scratch. It goes through 6 weeks, but again, just like in the Casitech way, we've added digital well-being. I want to say that because Dr. Minang asked you to ask me something on that. How should a kid behave when they go online? You really cannot restrict them because they have shortcuts. What you really need to do is the people side. Just educate them. The good kids will know that I'm watching this porn side. I'm not supposed to watching it, but because my mother have said it, that's where I've seen work. Talk to the kid, educate him on this stuff that you're doing in 10 years will be like this. When you're on the website, look for this productive thing. Remember when you were asking me about trees? Look at this. So we have a digital well-being program that we are going to launch in this summer camp. Dr. Mina, I know you have a camp. Please call me. Let me send you that package for free. So that all of
Thank
those
you.
kids should first start with digital well-being before they start learning something else. It's very important. We didn't have that, and we are all messing up. So scammers are taking us out. So
I would have loved for this conversation to go on, but I'll open it up now for last words. Dr. Minang, I want to start off, and again, I really want to say thank you for this time. It's been very enriching. What last words do you have?
So, anybody that knows me knows I always go back to my faith and my God. And I would say in this time of uncertainty, for those of you that believe in a higher power, believe in God, turn a lot more to that. Turn a lot more to your God, and you'll find that you have a lot more directions. You have a lot more peace as things are going through. And I just want to thank you, Lambert, for giving us this platform, and thank Hilaire and thank Mr. Tazi for co-hosting with me today, or for co-participating with me today. So thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Mbitaze.
Well, I really appreciate Lambert. I appreciate that you've created this opportunity. I've met two very brilliant and charismatic Cameroonians this morning that I wasn't expecting to meet. These are two individuals that I that have been very, very inspiring. And I'm looking at the Cameroonian diaspora, and I tell myself, we are immensely gifted. Could you imagine if you know conditions change back home such that these huge brains were able to just go back home and help rebuild the continent? I'm talking about our continent at large. This is amazing when you have two really gifted Cameroonians who are in entirely different fields. Just this morning, we spent the last 2 hours uh, brainstorming on great ideas which are moving the world. Could you imagine if these two people and all of the gifted Cameroonians that we have in the United States and in Europe and in Asia were able to really go back home and rebuild the continent? I have been immensely privileged in the to have lived in the United States, and there was a time when I served here as a journalist, was covered the White House and Congress and all of that. Uh, Looking back and looking at what is happening today, I would tell you that America guarantees the most promise of any country that that is in existence. Whatever problems there are, America always ends up figuring a solution. And the only way I can explain that is that the fact that America has a political system that transitions people who have old ideas and brings in new blood guarantees that America always ends up figuring finding its solutions. Uh, in 2001, when when the World Trade Center, when the terrorists brought down the World Trade Center, so many people called me, especially from Cameroon, and it was like this was the end of life in America. And I told them, just give America 2 years and they would figure out their solutions because they always know And that's what I'm going to say about COVID. COVID is going to help America to design solutions. Unfortunately, America has a president who really doesn't, who comes from a very old background, an antiquated background, that is not able to really understand the complexities of what is going on with COVID-19. But the American political system, some president is going to come in who is going to challenge this nation to looking at a way to make sure that America does not in future face a calamity like it has faced this time around. This nation has faced huge challenges. It always knows how to overcome its challenges, and lots of America's solutions to problems end up becoming problems that solutions that help the rest of humanity. These are the people who invented electricity. These are the people who invented computer and Wi-Fi and all of that. These are the people who invented radio. These are the people who invented television. All we as Africans need to do is to look at the thinking process. Sometimes we treat Americans as if they are a super gifted people. We need to copy their system. If we copy their system, it is going to unleash our thinking skills, and it is going to unleash the solutions to African problems. It just amazes me how Africans resist looking at America in very close detail in order to copy some of the ways Americans think. Let us not allow a few racist people, like a police officer who kills someone, to distract from the great promise that that the American system has given to mankind. And so I'm very, very optimistic that COVID and racism, America is going to figure some way of getting around it, because racism is nothing other than discrimination. We have it pretty much everywhere, but America is this nation that continues to evolve, to look for solutions. And I'm very, very optimistic about that.
Thank you very much, Tazi. And I mean, before I come to you, Aben, I had a nurse on this program 2 weeks ago who was recovering from COVID-19, and that was the week when we were celebrating the International Week for Nurses. And today, I want to say to all the teachers, to all the nurses, again, not just to them, because Dr. Minang, you embody not just a nurse, but also you are a parent, you are a mother. We want to say thank you to all those nurses who have been taking care of patients who themselves have put themselves on the line, in order to protect, to take care of persons. I want to, through you, say thank you to all mothers, to all women who have been doing a great job taking care of the kids during this period. I want to say thank you. And the same to you, Tazi, to all the teachers who at great length have sacrificed themselves, done all they could in order to not just impact knowledge, but also guide, coach, and direct our kids. I want to say thank you. I want to say a big thank you for the time you do, all the things that you do in order to make sure that these kids become the best. I want to say thank you. And I'm saying thank you on behalf of all of us who are parents, who are teachers, who are nurses, and to all who are listening. I want to say thank you. Aben, what last words?
So I'm very grateful to be in this panel, and like Tazi said, I've had I have so much admiration for meeting Tazi and Dillis. I always knew a lot about Dillis, but today, the areas that she covers, from the summer camp to business to PhD, it's just a lot. So, and to meet an administrator like this that I know now, I'll definitely be looking for him in Cameroon when he comes. I'm just glad. So thank you very much, Lambert. You've just expanded my Cameroon network with Tazi. So I want to say just two things. If you're watching this and you're a Cameroonian or you're an African and you see a problem in Africa, the answer The solution probably lies with you because that is where I came from. That's the first thing I said. The solution that we all seek, the things that we want to change in Africa, we do have ideas and we should be very courageous to go after them, especially in the continent. There's no success formula in Africa. For me, mine has been mindset. For other people, will be something else. My mindset is the reason why I've sustained there. Personally, this has been the most humbling time in my life. I left the US making almost 500K sometimes in years, and to be there with no money and feeling so fulfilled should tell you one thing. I have learned something that the doctor said about her faith. We are literally just vessels for God or the architect to make this world. I had so many skills and I thought it was me for so long because I always get this contract. A guy from Mallorca, from Boya, I bid for a contract in Singapore. I win with more than 5 different white companies. I used to tap myself in the back. Being in Cameroon for 2 years have been very humbling. You really realize that it's not you. Someone has a job that wants to transform the world, and you are that vessel. And once you admit your role in that big architectural plan, you're going to impact people with everything you have. You cannot be perfect. And that is the thing that has transformed me in my time in Cameroon. So when you ask the question, I went to Cameroon with 50% motivation. The reason why it's 170 is because I now realize that I was just an instrument. And so anyone that has an issue in Cameroon, if you go to Cameroon, you see a problem and you think there's a solution, partner with us. Another last thing I'll add on the commercial side, I don't understand how in Cameroon they call companies competition. Like we're all in the barrel, we're all crabs. It's a developing world. How can you be competing? If you have something that somebody don't have, the only thing we should be doing in Cameroon is partnership. And when we've gotten out of this situation and all our systems are good or seemingly good, we look like Europe or even South Africa, then I can start say that business is my competition. So I don't believe in competition, in commercialization. That's why every time I see somebody that is doing something different, I don't want to say better because that's the kind of way that makes people stay apart. If you're listening to me and you've heard something I said that you think we can partner, I'm all open. That's what we've been doing in Cameroon, partnering with people in agriculture. IT is a tool that can enable any industry. So I'm calling out for anybody that has a solution. Let's partner. The cloud is the future. I'm here to offer my services. Thanking you for this opportunity, Lambert. We continue to serve, and I hope that I can come back in a year or two with results because we are still in the development phases. And we are very grateful for the opportunity, very grateful for what we are doing back home. It is really been gratifying. So thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And I was going to read up a comment from my classmate and friend, Edward Teddy Formum Ake. Great program. All ideas brought up were insightful. I like the coding, the cloud, and technology ideas as they apply to education beyond racism. So I'm hoping that Aben and Dr. and Mrs. Minang, they're going to connect for that coding thing, especially for girls. I'm sure that my daughters, I'm 9 years, and Bitaze, I just wanted to open it up again and just say thank you because if you are looking for a job and you want to get into the teaching profession, Bitaze is a legend. He's one within the PJ County school system. He will be able to lead you, guide you, and help you get into the system. If you are looking for direction with respect to nursing, owning a business in the United States, Dr. and Mrs. Minang will be able to help you. They have a company, Optima Health Services. She will be able to guide you through that process, share her experience with you. And above all else, I want to say thank you to Aben, based in Cameroon, Casitech Academy, CAASITECH Academy. Check that out. And if you need any help getting into the IT world, Aben is a philanthropist. Philanthropy is not just in terms of money, it's also in terms of time, sharing skills and all that. And the reason we have this platform is in order to, come together, brainstorm and look for solutions and try to see how we can improve on the lives of each other. I want to say that if you all went to work today for 2 hours, 30 minutes, you would have made a lot of money, but I'm sure that you sacrificed that in order to impact lives. And I want to say thank you. You are always welcome to come back. And we will come back again next week, next Saturday. I'm going to be having a panel on vaccination. I'm sure I'm going to reach out to Dr. Minang again. So thank you all and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Let's continue fighting COVID, fighting racism, and let's continue to educate ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Today.
Thank you.